Good morning and welcome to our today's roundtable discussion about the intersection of sustainability and open innovation. This is Brienne Engel from yet2. We are an open innovation consulting firm, and we are honored to be joined today by a wonderful panel of representatives from groups that have worked with yet2 over our 20-year history. So for the discussion today, we'll be covering some brief introductions to our panel, anchoring the conversation about what we're talking about when we're talking about sustainability, and then giving each of our panelists a chance to present some information about what's going on at each of their different companies, and then opening it up for a roundtable discussion about how some of these groups are working with each other and other outside partners, and then opening it up also to our audience today for some questions on our panelists. So feel free throughout the webinar to use the question submission tab and send some questions over, and we will make sure we leave some time at the end to give our panelists a chance to answer. So I am Brienne Engel. I am a Senior Innovation Services Manager at yet2 and will be moderating today's panel. I am honored to be joined by Ronald Mondux from Signify, the Head of Public and Private Partnerships, Samir Telsania, a Senior Manager of External Innovation with PepsiCo, my colleague Megan Waldock, a Senior Project Leader and our internal sustainability expert at yet2, Steve Rader, the Deputy Director at the Center of Excellence in Collaborative Innovation at NASA, as well as Anne Bedarf, our Packaging Sustainability Manager from Colgate Palmolive. So just to set the stage for today, at a moment where we're all being asked to isolate ourselves, we want to make sure we're taking a time to talk about how we can all work together a little bit more seamlessly through open innovation, especially focused on sustainability. So I think that members of the public typically tend to think of sustainability as it relates to materials and packaging and the environmental consequences as outlined here on the lower left panel. But today we really wanted to bring together a group of people who are approaching sustainability from a number of different ways in a more holistic sense that also addresses some of the social and economic impacts. So obviously we've got representatives from corporations that are releasing products that need to make money, but also want to be guided by a role where they're considering the other larger impacts of our place in the world. And specifically, we're going to ask these panelists to talk about where open innovation plays a role in informing partnerships between different entities and technologies, where each group can bring together a different piece of this sustainability puzzle and think about it as this larger goal. So that's just sort of a brief overview of what we mean and why we pulled together this group of people today. And with that in mind, I am happy to hand it over to Ronald from Signify to talk about how they're thinking about sustainability.
Yeah, so good morning or good afternoon, everybody. As said, my name is Ronald Mondux, and I'm representing the company Signify. And Signify is maybe a new name for you, but it was the former Philips company. So Philips decided to split their company in two some years ago between healthcare and lighting. And we are the old Philips lighting company, and our new name is, since a couple of years, is Signify. We are the world leader in lighting. We're not only offering light sources, but also luminaires and systems and services. We are a little bit more than 6 billion euros turnover each year, and more than 30,000 people working in more than 70 countries. What's very important is, and we're also very proud in that we are seen in the looking to the Dow Jones Sustainability Index. We are seen as a leader, the #1 leader in this domain, and not only this year, but also for the last 2 years. So that's on sustainability. Open innovation is very important for us. And if you go to the next slide, can I do that? Yeah. Then we are very active on those 4 domains, 4 goals as set out by the UN, United Nations. And in the affordable and clean energy, of course, going from conventional lighting to LED lighting, you are doing a lot on energy efficiency. But we also are make the link to the off-grid areas. And we are also working very hard with the Global Off-Grid Lighting Association. If we go to the sustainability, now I lost my slides. Yeah, I'm back. Going to sustainable cities, we are very active by providing lights for safer cities, but we're also very active on human-centric lighting and even on city farming. The next goal is the responsibility consumption and production. There we do a lot on 3D printed luminaires, and also we are offering solutions to increase the food yield in horticulture. Now, on this, I will have 2 separate slides later in my presentation. And the climate action part, they are very involved in the carbon neutral program together with our suppliers. And with that, we want to decrease the overall environmental footprint. Now, as said, open innovation is very important. I think the next slide is showing a lot of names of universities, but also associations and other interest groups where we're trying to make the link. We are working together with them to reach our goals in those 4 different areas. I would like to give 3 examples of sustainability open innovations. And if you go to the next slide, there you see the first one. And there at the right, you see a very nice building, which is called The Edge. It's located in Amsterdam, and Deloitte is the owner of it. And there we have offered our connected lighting systems for offices. And those modern systems are all connected, wired or wireless. They have sensors on board, sensors are integrated, and that's producing a lot of data. And with that, we can do all kind of nice things. And if you look, for example, to the presence detectors, which are integrated, we know exactly where the office workers are in that building. And with that, we can make a link to the building management system, and we can provide much more clever the heating and cooling system in the summer. And with that, you can reduce a lot of energy cost each year. And in this specific building, it's even more than 100,000 euros per year. And by knowing where people are, you can also have a much better space utilization. And the saving on that is even more than 3 million each year. So this is a very nice example. By offering a very clever, intelligent IoT-enabled connected lighting system, you can create a lot of impact on the sustainability. So this is one example. We're working with sensor providers. We're working with building management system providers. And of course, we're also working very much together with the owner of those buildings. One example. Next example is our activity in horticulture. So there we are offering very energy efficient LED lighting system with the exact wavelength, which is ideal for the growth of the crop. And there we're working together with the growers and the greenhouse owners to have the most efficient system. We're working together with universities, for example, the University of Wageningen in the Netherlands. They are the real leader in this space. And we're trying to find the right wavelengths and trying to find the right recipes in order to have the most optimal production of the crops. Of course, it has a large impact, a big impact on the sustainability part. We can reduce energy, but also improve the yield and the overall productivity of the greenhouses in the world. Now, last example is on the next slide, and that's on 3D printing. So, as a company, we are very active on 3D printing. We are printing the luminaire shades. We have printing hubs all over the world. It has a lot of advantages. Of course, we can serve our customers much faster. Even people at home can order tailor-made their own luminaire, and that then delivered, as said, much faster. We can, with that, save time, energy, but also the waste in manufacturing, packaging, and also transportation costs are much lower than in the normal conventional printing of luminaires. A very nice link on this topic is made at the bottom. You see the CDs, a compact disc. In the past, Philips was invented the CD player and have sold millions of those CD discs. We are recollecting those CD discs. We're using their companies and recycling companies. They are collecting the CDs. The polycarbonate is dismantled from the CDs, is collected again, is formed to granulate, and exactly the same granulate is used to print again a new modern 3D luminaire for the customer. So that's a very nice example of a circular economy, where you're reusing old materials from old products in this case, in a modern lighting luminaire. Now, this was my introduction. I hope this was very interesting, and let's move on to the next person.
Great. Thank you, Ronald. Yeah, some great examples in some very different areas. So appreciate hearing about that. Up next, I will hand it over to Samir to talk about what's going on at PepsiCo.
Thanks, Brienne. This is Samir Talsania at PepsiCo. So PepsiCo, as you may know, is one of the largest food and beverage companies in the world. Our products are consumed nearly 1 billion times each day in nearly every country around the world. And 22 brands within our portfolio generate more than $1 billion each in retail sales every year, including our 5 mega brands, which include Pepsi, Quaker, Tropicana, Lay's, and Gatorade. With respect to sustainability, if you go to the next slide, in our latest sustainability report, our chairman and CEO, Ramon Laguarta, set out his vision for sustainability and his belief that it will be an essential component in PepsiCo's success in the marketplace. PepsiCo has committed to integrating purpose into the company's core business and brand strategies as part of its new vision to be the global leader in convenient foods and beverages by winning with purpose. We believe there's an opportunity to change how the world produces, distributes, and consumes food and beverages, and have focused our sustainability agenda on helping to build a more sustainable food system. You can go ahead and, I didn't know this was animated, so you can go ahead and pull them all up. PepsiCo is refocusing its sustainability agenda on 6 priorities where it believes it has the biggest opportunity to make a positive impact on the long-term sustainability of the global food system. These priorities that you see here are agriculture, water, packaging, products, climate, and people. And their associated targets are all aligned with the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Go to the next slide. Today, I'm going to talk about how we're leveraging open innovation to impact 3 of these goals. So within packaging, PepsiCo's sustainable plastics vision is rooted in 3 pillars: reducing the amount of plastics we use, recycling the plastics we bring to market, and reinventing our plastic packaging. Last year, PepsiCo joined the Alliance to End Plastic Waste, a collaboration of 40-plus global organizations promoting infrastructure development education and engagement, innovation, and cleanup efforts to keep plastic waste in the right place. The Alliance announced a partnership with startup accelerator Plug and Play to create an innovation platform that will focus on identifying solutions to lower the impact of plastic waste in the environment. Plug and Play has been a PepsiCo partner for over 3 years now, helping us identify promising startups with technologies to accelerate our innovation, not just in sustainable packaging, but also in things like novel ingredients, processing methodologies, food safety technologies, and more. In the area of next generation agriculture, PepsiCo is a founding member of the Midwest Row Crop Collaborative, where we get together with the leading companies and NGOs working on water quality and quantity, greenhouse gases, and soil health across the U.S. Midwest. We come together to surface and work on new ideas for addressing systemic issues holding back a transformation of U.S. agriculture. We have worked on new ideas and approaches to customer engagement, farmer engagement, policy, and more. In the area of water, and specifically on positive water impact, PepsiCo has supported Imagine H2O's beta partner program accelerator, which has provided water tech entrepreneurs with resources and industry visibility to scale water tech solutions. And these are just some of many examples of our open innovation approach to address sustainability. Thanks.
Great, thanks, Maria. Great overview, and we will hope to learn a little bit more about some of these when we get to the roundtable. So thank you, and I will hand it over to my colleague, Megan Waldock, to talk about some of the open innovation pieces.
Great, thanks, Brianne. As Brianne said, my name is Megan Waldock. I'm a senior project leader here at yet2, and I've been with the company for about 3 years now. My background, I have a bachelor's in chemistry and then a master's in sustainable solutions. So this is a really exciting topic for me to get to talk about today, and I'm very fortunate to have this opportunity. A lot of what I focused on in my graduate degree was looking at how science, technology, and innovation systems can contribute to sustainable development. And as you can see with the Sustainable Development Goals, it's more than just contributing to one goal with one technology. Technologies have so many different impacts on different systems. So finding technologies and solutions that are able to contribute positively to multiple goals is really what I focus on, and I'm excited to get to continue to do at yet2 as we work with a lot of our clients on these different goals and creating sustainable technologies or partnerships that move towards that. So happy to go ahead and go on to the next slide. So we want to talk a little bit from our perspective of yet2 of how we see some of our clients approaching sustainability and innovation and how they're thinking about that and how that reflects on open innovation. So there's a great article from MIT Sloan that talks about some of the different mindsets of how we think about innovation. One is thinking about it as just kind of a positive side effect, something that's relevant to sustainability, sustainability informed, where it's one of the inputs, but maybe not the primary input. And then sustainability as the core purpose for sustainability-driven innovation, where that's what the primary purpose of that technology is. So if we go to the next slide, that was just kind of to preface the conversation with, these are some of the projects that we work on at yet2, and some of the different ways that helps us think about sustainability when we're looking at this for our clients, but also gives us a very good understanding of how our clients are viewing sustainability when we're scouting for specific solutions for them. So under the sustainability-driven innovation over on the left-hand side, these are probably what are thought of as traditional sustainability projects, looking for packaging or carbon capture, things that are often associated with the environmental output. But there's a very important part of this that's looking at being a sustainable solution overall and having a positive economic output and social output as well. And so these projects are really great for us to work on. And I think it's particularly exciting for us to see that, there exist packaging solutions out there. There are, laundry solutions out there that are currently working just fine today. But it's really exciting for us to see that our clients are moving more towards these sustainable solutions and more interested in those as the core purpose of their technology, especially as some of these technologies move closer to cost parity with current solutions out there. So we love getting to see that our clients are interested in these and making that switch over to more sustainable alternative technologies. And we also have the sustainability-informed innovation, where the sustainability might not be the primary goal, but it is one of the significant inputs and one of the things that it is important to the solution. It might not be the most obvious, but we see this sometimes looking at Internet of Things and drones used for things like communications or infrastructure monitoring, where that might be something that would heavily affect the wildlife in the region to have a very heavy human presence there, monitoring equipment or things like that. But being able to do that with technology that really reduces the impact on the wildlife system is really important, and we are excited to get to see some of that. The last column there, sustainability relevant innovation, is maybe not the most obvious that this is related to sustainability, but it's still nonetheless very exciting for us to see because these systems are still contributing to promoting very healthy social well-being. First responder technologies, we do a lot of work with NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technologies, trying to move the needle forward on first responder technologies so that first responders, such as paramedics, firefighters, police officers, have technologies that not only enable them to do their jobs effectively and efficiently, but do it more safely. And that just really helps protect our communities overall. And then they also do it in a way that really helps to push forward economic development. So not only paying attention to that social aspect of sustainability, but often trying to fund small companies that have developed a really interesting technology and trying to push the needle forward through that economic development of innovation, which is really great for us to see. So these are just a few of the different projects that we get to work on at yet2 with our clients and how we think about sustainability when we're working on them. I'm sure I'll touch on some of these later on throughout our presentation, but I'll go ahead and hand it back to Brienne for now.
Great. Thanks, Megan. So I just wanted to say thank you for all of the great questions that are coming in throughout the speakers' presentations. I just wanted to let you know if we do not have time to cover them all today, we're happy to reply offline. So feel free to keep those coming. And up next, we'll be hearing from Steve Rader at NASA.
Thanks, Brienne. I'm Steve Rader. I'm the Deputy Director for NASA's Center of Excellence for Collaborative Innovation, which is a small group that's been around since about 2011 that works both across NASA and our internal agency efforts, as well as across the entire federal government. So we actually facilitate through interagency agreements work that EPA and Homeland Security and others do in the open innovation area, and we try to enable those programs to start. Our public-facing program is called the Nafta Tournament Lab. We've run about 400 challenges to date. That includes both some external platforms as well as an internal crowd of about 25 to 30,000 employees within our agency. And we use about 18 different open innovation platforms, different curated crowds worldwide that represent about 70 million people. So yet2 is one of those, Top Coder, Incentive, 9 Sigma, and I can go on and on with the list there. And our functions to try to make this new mechanism easier to use for our folks. That's by putting the contracts in place, putting processes, kind of knocking down the barriers of doing new. And then we do a lot of education and outreach. And then we also work with Harvard Business School and other universities on research in what makes open innovation work, how do we best utilize it. Next slide. Next, there we go. So NASA, obviously, our focus is space exploration and aerospace-related goals for the country. But we do find that our goals actually align with a lot that's going in the sustainability world, apart from just our own efforts to be good stewards as a large organization. I've put a few on here. I'll name some others. But a lot of this is when we align with our goals. So, for instance, in NASA, we're very concerned with closed loop life support. So that's recycling air and water because we need to do that. And it turns out that those technologies are very transportable into what we need to do for sustainability terrestrially. And so you'll see things like the Earth and Space Air Prize Challenge or the OpenX Challenge, where we've actually gone and done things that help us, but also help the rest of the world. So in the sensor world, that Earth and Space Air Prize was actually a particulate sensor challenge that we jointly did with Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. They were concerned about having a low-cost, accurate sensor that would be available for monitoring pollution in cities, and we needed a much better solution for in space because particulate contamination is a problem in our closed atmospheres. And so we ran those challenges together using a new Competes Act authority and came up with two really nice solutions that are actually making big impacts in that sensor world and in that domain. So in the NASA Tournament Lab, we typically use these kinds of firms and that have crowds like yet2, like Incentive, like Topcoder, to run our challenges. We also have the Centennial Challenges program, which is our large-scale X Prize level challenge, where we'll put a large prize out there, kind of like the DARPA Self-Driving Car Challenge or the X Prize Challenge. I know they've got several with the environment with their Water Abundance Challenge and global issues with AI challenge that are currently out there. The Green Flight Challenge is a great example where, in our aero world, we actually put a $1.4 million prize out there with the goal of getting a small aircraft to be able to do 200 passenger hours per gallon of fuel. So a very ambitious goal. We ended up getting two teams that actually solved that challenge and met that goal. But what we found is that $1.5 million of funding turned into $6 million of investment by the teams to actually make that progress. So we see the real multiplication efforts. Just a few others to note. We do have our internal crowd where we've done a lot of efforts around electric vehicles and solar energy for internal uses, packing foam alternatives, energy savings at the employee level, things like that. But we also have a couple of programs that kind of use the NASA brand as a way to amplify and engage people. So we have an entire citizen science program that uses citizen science platforms like Zooniverse to do things like landslide detectors, or there's a program called Icy Change where we actually get people to observe and climate change and record that, as well as the GLOBE program, which is really observing for the benefit of environmental programs. And then NASA actually sponsors the world's largest hackathon every October called the International Space Apps Hackathon. And in that, we engage, something like 27,000 people around the world over a weekend, and they've come up with apps to detect oil leaks and visualization of the consequences of sea level rise, ways to remove marine microplastics, ways to really monitor air quality in real time, and the like. So there's lots of really neat things going on with the agency, both with our employees, but also engaging the public in various ways to do this kind of stuff. With that, I'll turn back the balance of my time.
Thank you so much, Steve. And last but not least, we have Ann Bedarf to tell us about what's going on at Colgate Palmolive.
All right, thank you so much. Hopefully you're all familiar with the brand. And there's a lot more than just Colgate and Palmolive. We have soft soap, we have Speed Stick, Fabuloso, Suavitel, Tom's of Maine, and most recently Hello, an oral care brand that we acquired. So I'm going to focus here on packaging sustainability. We have a much broader sustainability strategy, and in fact, stay tuned because the updated 2025 strategy will be coming up soon. We've already focused a lot on water. You know, it's really interesting with our products, cleaning and oral and personal care, a lot of water is used in the use phase. So not always something we can directly control, but something through Save Water messaging that we talk about a lot. So, you know, water, climate, plastic, all of these big issues. And I'm going to focus on the packaging piece. So next slide, for 2020, you know, a lot of companies have 2025 goals. Back in 2014, we set some 2020 goals, and I think it's pretty clear here what they were. You know, we identified PVC as a problematic material we wanted to get out of, mostly in our toothbrush blister packs. So we're on track to get to that 0%. 50% recycled content across all packaging. We're making great progress there. We're over 45. We're working on our final numbers, but do expect to meet that goal by 2020 end. And then 100% recyclable. So meaning that, and this is for 3 categories, and I'll explain more about that in a minute. So home care, personal care, and pet nutrition. We do also own Hills Pet Food as well. And so what that means is that within those categories, the goal is that people should be able to place those packages in their recycling bin. So how are we working to meet those goals, or how have we worked over the past few years? Obviously, making things more recyclable, there's a number of needed work there. And thinking about, you know, collaboration and innovation, a lot of this we work with recycling agencies, you know, and the trade associations like APR. That's a very significant one for anyone interested in plastics in North America. The Association of Plastics Recyclers, APR, an invaluable partner for us. And so we've been doing things like making the PET clear when we can, because did you know colored PET is not recyclable? Everything is technically recyclable, but is it accepted in the stream? And do we have a stream that's valuable is a question that we want to always answer with yes. So higher recycled content, you know, we have that 50% goal, but with some where we can, we're going to 100%. Plastics reduction, you know, this is something a lot of companies have done for efficiency purposes, and we continue to do that. But removable shrink sleeves, that's one example. You see a lot of shrink sleeves in the market, but they do impact sortability and ultimate recyclability. And so not only have we put removable ones, and we've received an award for developing a new technology with APR, with the suppliers, SKC, with some ink companies, in order to have a compatible shrink sleeve that doesn't actually need to be removed, right? Because that's really what we want. Ideally, we wouldn't have the consumer needing to do any separation for putting something in the bin. And then how do we articulate that? That's this other piece of better recycling guidance. So using how to recycle labeling in US and Canada and others globally where they're relevant. One of the other things we've worked a lot on, and I'm hoping that, and you've heard about it, is our recyclable tube. So Colgate makes over 8 billion tubes a year globally, right? So we feel a big responsibility on tubes. And next slide, you can kind of see here some of the challenges with making a tube recyclable. Just from thinking about, well, what happens to a tube when you're done with it? So I just, want to put this in your mind as we talk about recyclability later in the panel discussion, to say it's not kind of this static system that's like a yes or no or one entity. There's a whole complex recycling supply chain in itself. And so you could see here some of the things that we had to consider for making a recyclable toothpaste tube. So we began with the end in mind. So going all the way to the right, reprocessors. Can it be reprocessed? like number one. And a lot of recyclability focuses only on reprocessing, but it is so much more. So in this example of the tube, we wanted it to be with a stream that exists. So colored HDPE, you might know it as number 2 plastic. But then starting back here on the left, if we have to design it, we have to communicate it, we have to ensure collection. What does a community tell people to do with tubes? Right now, they either tell them to throw it in the trash or they don't say anything at all. So that's where not only have we been working on the technical piece, but also that acceptance piece, and also collaborating with others to get them to change. It doesn't do us much good if Tom's of Maine toothpaste tubes are the only recyclable tubes out there, or even if all Colgate tubes are recyclable. And that's why we made the commitment to share not only technology, but to encourage others to join the efforts on education with the recycling supply chain, because until we get a critical mass in the system, the recyclers will view our recyclable tube as contamination. So that's a humbling realization, but yet it was something, we identified early on and have been trying to work on very collaboratively. And then just one other piece, sorting. So there's approximately 400 what are called MRFs in the U.S. So they take your mixed recyclables and try to sort it into bales of like with like that can be then sold. So that sorting piece even becomes very important. You got to think about the size of your package. So all of these pieces, we have about 5 different organizations and collaborations we work with. As I said before too, including competitors. We've talked to a few competitors now about the technology, and that's been a very exciting development in moving towards a world where all tubes are considered recyclable. So to that end, last slide here, we do have 2025 goals that now we're building on. So starting on the right, 100% recyclable. So now we had added oral care. Back when we did the initial goals, we weren't sure if we could get to a recyclable tube, but now that we have, and we're working, on converting over the Colgate business, that is a company-wide all-category goal for 2025. Much in line with what you've probably seen with other CPGs and what the Ellen MacArthur Foundation New Plastics Economy Group, which we're also part of, has put forward in their plastics commitment. So plastics, that's really where a lot of focus has been. We're not going to take our eye off of, fiber and preventing deforestation. I think that's still very important. But plastics has risen to the top, both when we think about our tooth, or all of our packaging, but also our toothbrushes. And so we upped our recycled content goal to 25% for plastics, which is quite a jump from where we are now. And then again, per Ellen MacArthur Foundation language, 0% problematic and unnecessary packaging. So beyond PVC, how can we continue to lightweight, do things like reuse? I don't have a slide on it here, but absolutely reuse refill is another way to reduce packaging needs and to move us more towards a sustainable future. So I'll stop there. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, and appreciate all of the input from our panelists about what's going on at their respective institutions. So in the last remaining about 20 minutes here, we've been getting some great questions, and I am happy to open up the roundtable discussion. Our first question is for Anne and Samir. When implementing sustainability projects, what cultural hurdles have you had to overcome in order to effectively work with competitors? And I will hand it over to Anne if you don't mind giving the first answer.
Sure. Yeah, it's interesting. My previous job before coming to Colgate was with the Sustainable Packaging Coalition, which is a few hundred companies working under the nonprofit Green Blue. So that took a little getting used to, right? Because there I was so used to collaboration among different companies, Coke and Pepsi together in that group, as well as many other groups. I saw Coke and Pepsi people hug each other a few weeks ago before social distancing. But, so coming from that atmosphere, I do think internally and companies now are more and more open to that. But, people know what they know. And when you are thinking about, a formulation or trying to, the marketing folks trying to be first at something and be able to talk loud and proud about it, there are definitely concerns about working with competitors. And so, but what I've discovered is, when you talk about the benefits of collaboration, and particularly, I think where we're seeing this and that where those recent meetings were is on, well, what do we do about the waste piece? Because the waste is the problem, right? I think it's an interesting thing when we talk about plastics because of all the amazing things that plastic brings to us, and yet this huge problem that nobody wants to see. And so I think that we are absolutely seeing a cultural shift, both just from within, the culture itself, but also within companies to say, let's solve this problem together. We can't solve the problem in the Philippines by ourselves. We really have to focus on collection, making a value for our material. And so I think we're at a really great point to overcome those hurdles because of the dire situation we're in with ocean plastics and other things that we all want to help solve.
Fantastic. Samir, would you mind answering the same question about cultural hurdles that you've overcome to work with competitors?
Yeah, absolutely. So just to build on what Anne said, yes, PepsiCo is fiercely competitive, particularly in the markets that we compete in, wanting to be first and be innovative. However, we've realized that we are able to collaborate with competitors, especially for pre-competitive items, and sustainability definitely fits into that regime, right? And I think Anne also alluded to it before that oftentimes we can come up with a new innovation, but we really need others to adopt it to get to a critical mass, and sometimes you need full industry-wide adoption of, let's say, a new sustainable material. Otherwise, it does present a problem from an infrastructure perspective in terms of recycling or whatnot. So I think we've started to realize that internally, and we are getting into more partnerships with competitors, both pre-competitive, and then I think it's starting to creep along to other areas as well beyond sustainability.
Fantastic. So we have another question that came in from that is, I think, geared for Ronald and Steve. So implementing sustainability using open innovation tends to be really great for long-term big solutions. But could you speak about any short-term solutions that could be more easily executed? And I'll hand it over to Ronald.
Yeah, well, I think open innovation and try to get landed in a company is never easy. It's always difficult because everything has to fit together. But if we look to the short-term part, then I think at first on the IoT, the Internet of Things world type of applications, where one provider has a platform, another provider has a kind of a sensor generating data, and by teaming up, that platform can be used to collect the data and to make the right links to the other applications player, and with that, realizing added value. And in this example, that the products are ready, but this combination is, as I said, is added value, and that's in principle, I think, more easier more on a shorter term to get an open innovation cooperation possible. Both partners need each other. Both partners know that by teaming up, they have a chance to come up with a new value proposition. So I think those are the type of ingredients. And also think worthwhile to add that if you have a platform and you have only your own application, in most of the time it's not worthwhile to continue. But by adding different applications on the same platform, then you can make a difference. So there's a strong need for open innovation, and I think then it is more easier trying to be successful. Steve, your view?
Sure. Well, it's interesting because, we've definitely been involved in the multi-million-dollar, multi-year challenges, and we think those are important for complex problems. However, in the innovation side, we've gone all the way down to, a $50 prize that takes literally 4 days, and we've found that to be useful as well. And in fact, in some ways, more useful, right? Because when you're looking for innovation, what you're really looking for is a much better starting point that's going to leverage the latest and greatest tech and the latest and greatest knowledge and skills out there to then go apply to all of the constraints and things that you know about. And that's where open innovation is just magic, right? Because there is so much technology development and so much knowledge. People don't realize, something like 9 out of 10 of the scientists that have ever lived on the planet are alive today. We've passed the curve, the bend in the curve, going up on numbers of PhDs and numbers of patents. What that means is it is almost impossible for folks to do things like they used to in terms of themselves Googling and finding the latest and greatest tech and the latest and greatest ideas that apply to their innovation problem. And so open innovation gives you that opportunity to really cast a really wide net and to find really in other industries where somebody's already put 2 and 2 together on a technology or set of technologies and come up with something that you can actually translate into your problem. But what we tell our folks is what you're really getting is the better starting place, the better innovation point that you then can go and do even more with. So the finding those 10x solutions that help you go even farther.
Awesome. So I think that for the next 10 minutes or so here, we have some questions to open up to the entire panel. So if you all don't mind talking about, we have a question about what do you see as the key sustainability challenges for your business or industry in the next 5 years? I will hand it over to Ronald to talk about Signify in the lighting industry.
Well, I think they have also already given some examples, but I think what has high of our interest now is the horticulture business, where we really want to make a big step in the supply chain of the food chain and really want to offer the right lighting solutions in order to decrease the impact of growing food for the world, and I think that's a very important area for us. We just had almost finalized the conversion from conventional lighting to LED lighting. We have made a step to the connected lighting systems where we can integrate all kinds of sensors. Already explained by that example of that building office here in Amsterdam, the Netherlands. And a very important next step is the horticulture type of solutions.
Great. So I know you talked about it a little bit, but Samir, would you mind mentioning some other challenges for the next 5 years at PepsiCo?
Sure. So packaging is really a big focus area for us right now, particularly with the area of plastics. And then I talked a little bit about the Alliance to End Plastic Waste that we're a part of to make sure that plastic isn't used for proper purposes and doesn't end up as waste. But beyond packaging, we're also looking at, if you imagine we're a consumer packaged goods company, but we're looking at things like beyond the bottle and beyond the bag initiatives as well to see how do we move beyond just a packaged product. And then our acquisition of a company like SodaStream is one example of that. So we're also looking for new innovations on how to deliver product without the bottle or without the bag as well. And those will require new technologies and new innovations in that space. And so there are definitely some challenges and then on how to do that, and we're looking for partners to do so.
Great. And Megan, I know in our business we get to hear about a lot of other industries, so I didn't know if you had anything to add about sort of general trends or anything coming out of other industries.
Yeah, I'm happy to add kind of one little component. Obviously, there's a lot going on in various industries, and we've talked a lot about packaging today, but have not really touched much on the energy industry, and that's typically a big topic with oil and gas coming up with the energy industry. So I wanted to mention some of the trends that we're seeing for the energy industry is that they're focused on finding energy storage solutions, so often very big grid scale batteries, and this is due to, we think about renewable energy as solar, wind, but we don't think about the really important component of that is how do we store that energy in a cost-effective way at a cheap price. And so we have to be able to do that in order to really utilize those renewable resources really well. So a big trend in the energy industry is finding really cost-effective, energy efficient, high energy density energy storage solutions that are going to really be able to push the renewables forward as a viable option in the future.
Fantastic. So I have a question that came in, and I think it's very relevant. So we have a question about how do you think the current COVID-19 situation will impact sustainability and climate change? And do you think these potentially beneficial impacts can persist when the virus threat is gone? So with that big topical question in mind, I will hand it over maybe to Steve, if you don't mind talking about your thoughts on this.
Sure. It's interesting. One of the things that I work also on is future of work and this kind of shift to the gig economy. And we're seeing this as a potential pivot point, right? Where after massive layoffs that are expected, people are trying to have already been experiencing what it's like to participate in open talent markets, so big platforms where they're able to make work. And so it'll be interesting to see if there's a whole lot more people that kind of migrate out and speed up the trend that's already been there of migrating out of large organizations. And I think for sustainability, that means a lot less cars on the road. That means a lot more remote work. It starts to really change the dynamic of what it means to work. And I would say the biggest impact of this virus directly is that, right? The emergence of remote work, even within organizations, as a new norm. I don't know, it's like 7 years ago, IBM got rid of all of its buildings and, basically had everyone start teleworking. And there have been a number of organizations that have done things like that. And I think we'll see a pivot there, and just out of its very nature, that's going to make a difference.
Great. I think, yes, we're fortunate at least to be able to still connect over the phone and through webinars. So it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out. And I didn't know, Anne, if you wanted to add anything about what you see as the impacts for a group like Colgate Palmolive.
Yeah, I'm at home now. Obviously, I mean, a lot of us already have flexibility to work from home. But then I think about the people in the plants, right? Like, we still need to brush our teeth still at home. Oral care is still very important. And, part of our business is providing like Fabuloso disinfectant wipes, so I've been thinking about the some of the positives that can come out of it. I mean, I think some of it is less travel is better for the climate. It's kind of an interesting thing. Like we use the Google suite of products already for connecting to the plant in Mexico, for example, that I think people might realize. I certainly have, the great ability of that to take place as some face-to-face meetings, frankly. At the same time, again, thinking about our plants, that one of the things I'm a bit worried about is waste. Like I think about wipes, we, like, as I mentioned, we make wipes, Ajax wipes too, for example, that are compostable. Are those things getting really composted? What's happening? What are the wastes that are going to be more prevalent now that there's going to be, I think for a long time, a higher consciousness of cleanliness? So perhaps that gives us, again, trying to think about opportunities to look at different streams, compostability. And, I love, for example, Pepsi has done great work on compostable snack bags and has seen some successes with that. And that's one of the topics of an Ellen MacArthur Foundation working group on compostability is, well, what is the appropriate way to get things into the stream that aren't otherwise recyclable? So those are two of the things that I'm thinking about. I'm sure more will evolve as we're at home more and it becomes more of the new reality. But I certainly hope it doesn't, push us further into a digital age so much so that we forget about like the simple things like, having a cup of coffee with a friend, which we often do in our jobs as well. So hopefully we can strike that right balance.
Sure, fantastic, and absolutely appreciate that you brought up sort of an additional way to get materials back besides recycling. But we did have a question come in about the low compliance or low levels of recycling that occur in the U.S. So what are some thoughts about collecting post-consumer waste and additional content for additional packaging streams? So I didn't know, Samir, if you had thoughts about collecting post-consumer waste.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely a challenge. For bottles, it's easier. For bags, that's a challenge that we're actively working against. It presents a especially difficult because of the weight of the material versus the so really the challenge of them becomes in collection and transport and things like that for such a light material like flexible packaging. And so we are actively looking at solutions. Recently came across some startups that have technologies to compact and compress these things to make it easier to transport and things like that. So there's I think Anne mentioned it, that you have to look at the entire chain. It's not just about the recycling. It's about collection. It's about transport. It's about sortation, identification of materials, and all of those things are going to be important, and all of those things need solutions. And in order to we can't do it all ourselves. We need to be able to leverage the entire community of experts to solve different pieces of the challenge, and we can help bring people together to bring the entire chain together to put together an end-to-end solution.
Absolutely. So I know Anne has talked about this a little bit today. I didn't know if there was anything else that, Anne, you wanted to add about this piece of collecting post-consumer content.
Yeah, just to add to what Samir said, I think we have to find a way to translate waste into value, right? And the system is, I've heard others say, localities or governments are not rational economic actors, and they're not supposed to be, meaning, the waste collection, recycling services is just that, it's a service. So recycling isn't going to be, quote, economical, or it's the cost of material Sales is not ever going to equal the cost of providing that service. And so I think that's why collaborations like we're both part of like the Recycling Partnership and Closed Loop Fund include also the government piece, like EPA is in part of those discussions in some localities, like in Minnesota and Seattle, for example, to really, bring that value piece into it. And I'm hoping that the economic signals we're sending and saying we want recycled content will help bring that value. And then those groups we're part of, Recycling Partnership being an NGO, is also working with over 1,000 communities on both deploying carts and infrastructure, but also education and inspiring. I like this term, inspiring consumers, right? Inspiring people, all of us, to learn the recycling system and to participate. So hopefully we can, keep that momentum going.
Fantastic. Well, we are right at the hour, so I wanted to give a huge thank you to our panelists. We appreciate you coming and weighing in on the topic of sustainability from so many different viewpoints and industries. So there will be a post-webinar survey going out to all of the participants today. We'd be happy to hear suggestions on future topics, anything else you'd like to see. If you are curious in learning more about sustainability, we have a white paper that recently went out. And if you have experience working in these areas, we have clients looking for sustainability solutions. Feel free to check out our active projects or to reach out to our colleague in the UK, Imran Mosley. So thank you everyone for joining today, and we hope to connect with you again on future webinars.
Thanks, Brianne.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you as well.
Thank you all.